Republican Congressman Brian Mast of Florida. He's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as a U.S. veteran. Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us. A headline in the Wall Street Journal today reads, quote, Trump has glossed over high prices. Republicans worry it will cost them, unquote. That's the headline in the Wall Street Journal. Are you hoping at all that President Trump makes high prices the center point of his speech tomorrow in his joint address to Congress?
I think he'll address that specifically in this way. The plan is simple as it relates to inflation and prices. The government spends less money, your prices go down. You have less taxes, you have more disposable income. The plan is that simple from the administration. That is what they've been working on, cutting the size and scope of government, spending less of your money. President
Trump announced his tariffs on goods coming in from Canada, Mexico, and China. Those tariffs are going to go into effect at midnight tonight. That news sent stocks tumbling about 650 points down today. Do you support these tariffs? Are you worried at all that the cost is going to be passed on to the consumer?
I support the tariffs and I support the brinksmanship that's going on because it brings results. When you look at what's going on, you see Mexico, instead of getting a plant for making Civics in Mexico, they're going to get that in Indiana. You get Taiwan Semiconductor getting $100 million investment into Arizona. You get things being addressed with fentanyl on our border and immigration on our border. You get things addressed on the northern border with Canada as well. And the closer it gets to the midnight hour, the more they're coming to the table with what they want to bargain with President Trump. No company likes disruption. We know that that's the case. They're not going to want to move a plant or do something else. And I can tell you, Ford hasn't called me personally, but I've had a lot of phone calls from mid-sized companies that have literally been saying, how do we bring this or this or this back into the United States of America?
Let's turn to Russia's war against Ukraine. Today, Ukrainian President Zelensky said he's counting on U.S. support to help the country find peace. Do you think that Zelensky and Ukraine can still count on the U.S. for support?
I think you quoted one half of the argument, which is President Trump saying minerals deal is still on the table. Zelensky saying that a deal is still on the table. But in the end, you have, again, you were asking before about anybody criticizing President Trump. There's nothing to criticize here. He's moving the ball down the field. You have a situation where now Europe is finally realizing they have to be a partner in security. If there's going to be any security guarantee for Europe, that has to come from Europe standing on its own. It has to come from European nations meeting GDP percentages like Poland is up at 4%. From UK saying they're going to up their spending, an additional $2 billion a year. From Germany saying, hey, we're going to create a $400 billion defense fund, and the list goes on and on, from Macron in Paris to others. They're all realizing what President Trump is doing in making sure that Europe is a partner that doesn't need America to go out there and defend every bit of it. And I'm going to make one other statement on this as well, and that's to say everybody has to realize that they're still, it's so ironic, they're still reliant on Russian oil and gas, moving it throughout Europe or moving it to other places and bringing it back into Europe. So they're essentially putting as much money into supporting Russia and not putting as much money into actually defending Ukraine and then begging us to be the backstop for security. That comes to an end.
Yeah, I actually saw a study from a European group that showed that Europeans were actually buying more Russian oil and gas than they were helping Ukraine in terms of the aid. So in some ways, the Europeans are funding both sides in this war. But let me just ask you, because you said there's nothing to criticize about President Trump's showdown with Zelensky and Vice President Vance's showdown with Zelensky last Friday. I just want to read, this is from Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, who said on Twitter on March 1st, this week started with administration officials refusing to acknowledge that Russia started the war in Ukraine. It ends with a tense, shocking conversation in the Oval Office and whispers from the White House they may try to end all U.S. support for Ukraine. She says, right now I'm sick to my stomach as the administration appears to be walking away from our allies and embracing Putin, a threat to democracy and U.S. values around the world. That's a fellow Republican.
Yeah, I would just say, look at the results, Lisa. Look at what's going on over there with all the stats that I just gave you about European nations that are upping their defense spending, the fact that we're addressing how much they're still putting into Russia right now, and don't come and beg for us to be your security guarantee when you're still propping up the entity that you're worried about defending against.
Republican Congressman Brian Mast of Florida, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much, sir. Good to see you as always.
Take care.